before starting, some rules of the house. So the event will be recorded and the slides shared after the event. We will try to interact with the public, hence please use the chat if you have any comment or question. Respond to the polls and surveys that will be shown and run during the event. So, as you're probably aware, today's event is part of a series of thematic events aiming to support and deepen the engagement within the framework of EU mission, A Soil Deal for Europe. Specifically, the objectives of this event are to refine and customize soil mission messages for diverse types of audiences across different countries, to cluster stakeholder groups, stimulating their involvement in the Healthy Soil Mission and living labs. The goal is to encourage networking and collaboration on a transnational scale. By mobilizing specific knowledge resources efficiently, the event will introduce challenges, showcase best practices, and inspire innovative approaches for the future of living labs engaged with the mission, and also through cutting-edge topics. This is a glance of the rest of the thematic events that will be running between December, so this is the first one, until mid-February. We will addressing soil de-sealing as today, but also gender barriers in agri-food system, industry engagement for sustainable soil health, smart specialization on the soil mission, healthy soil forestry, and the decontamination issues. So yes, I think we can start. Yes. So Evgenio, I'll leave the floor to you.
Thanks, Anita. Good morning, everyone. So yes, let's dive and enter and explore the central theme of today's event, which is focusing on solutions for urban, industrial, post-industrial soil de-sealing. The specific objectives for these events are to introduce challenges and showcase best practices on the topic of soil de-sealing. On the other side, we also want to get inspired by innovative approaches for future living labs engaged in the soil mission, also including cutting-edge topics. We also want, through these events, encourage cross-country collaboration, so start clustering stakeholder groups and stimulating their involvement in healthy soil living labs. The goal is to encourage networking and collaboration on a transnational scale, indeed. Last but not least, we also want to introduce, aim, and to refine and customize the EU soil mission messages for diverse audiences across different countries. The event today is organized in two main parts. First, introduction and two keynote speeches. Then we have a small break, and the second part will be more a collaborative session with discussants. So in the first part, as I said, we give a sort of introduction also for those of you who are not really familiar with the mission, A Soil Deal for Europe. This is one of the 5 European missions. It's a very recent one and aims to lead the transition to healthy soils in 2030. The mission is also very connected and at the heart of the EU Green Deal, the transition to overcome the threats of climate change and environmental degradation. So the European Healthy Soil Mission established 8 objectives to support the pathway towards healthy soils by 2030. These, of course, objectives are required to be addressed by applicants to the call. And in particular today, this event focuses on 2 objectives. The objective number 3, which is soil sealing and increase reuse of urban soils, and also objective 6, which is about improving soil structure to enhance soil biodiversity. Then a few words about the Horizon Europe project Nations that is promoting this event. Nations supports potential applicants to the calls of the soil mission, which has the ambitious aim to establish 100 living labs on healthy soils by 2030. Now you can understand also why the strange name of our project, which contains 100 living labs in the title. Hence, nations act as a messenger for the mission, raising awareness among national and regional stakeholders, providing access to quality, checked capacity building materials and information, spurring the discussions on the best living lab setups to address regional soil needs, and fostering early matchmaking for cross-country living lab clusters. And so what is the approach that the mission wants to promote and also the project of Nations? We have at the center living labs and lighthouses concepts, and to address healthy soils challenges. Living labs indeed sustain and are in direct connection to three main concepts, three fundamental pillars, as you see from this diagram. The first is research and innovation. We believe that living labs enhance scientific knowledge through multidisciplinarity and multiple stakeholders' contributions, also helping improving research questions that emerge also from local operators and place-based settings. The second pillar is soil literacy and citizen engagement. We want to promote and encourage how to get support from the public, create awareness and building capacity, but also living labs help responding to citizens' needs and co-create innovative solutions, again in a place-based settings. Last but not least, monitoring, the third pillar on living labs, can ensuring continuity in monitoring practices through sense of belonging and co-management of healthy soils by establishing frameworks of data and indicators.
Okay, so how and what does Nations do in practice to support call applicants? So first of all, we had some national engagement events and webinars running in the past months. We had a lot of participation and we're gaining a lot of insights on what to do and how to better exploit the different types of expertise and knowledges at stake. And then we have also the matchmaking platform and help desk that are all meant to support potential candidates for the EU calls. I've also pasted the links to our website, so if you want to dive in more into these matters, you please visit our website. But in a nutshell, the activities of Nations in general encompasses a variety of channels to disseminate the mission messages through informing, training, supporting, and involving applicants and stakeholders, setting up their living labs. And again, you can get more insight by visiting our website. Another objective of this event is to initiate and facilitate networking among cross-country stakeholders interested in the topic of soil de-sealing. So you can explore our digital board on Miro and look for potential partners. You can also use the search tool to find yourself and other partners. And I'm sharing the link in the chat. So please refer to the link in the chat to take the chance to do some networking if you like.
Thanks, Anita. And let's then move to our guest. Before that, I would like just to introduce the topic of soil de-sealing. Of course, soil de-sealing refers to the process of reversing or mitigating the effects of soil sealing. So the definition is very much connected to the soil sealing definition. Soil sealing is understood to be the action of permanently covering an area of land with artificial impermeable materials such as cement or asphalt, according to the European Environmental Agency. And of course, let's say the challenges related to soil de-sealings are really numerous: public awareness, technical challenges, financial constraints, policy and regulatory barriers. So we will discuss about this during the event, so I'm not entering too much in detail, and this will be discussion also in the second part. So here we are. we have our two keynote speakers, Luca Montanarella and Federico Brogini. So please make sure to keep your microphone mute, and also feel free to write in the chat your impressions and questions to our keynote speakers if you have any urgent questions for them. So I invite Luca Montanarella to share his screen, and I shortly like to introduce you. Luca Montanarella from the Joint Research Center of the European Commission is head of the European Soil Data Center, ESDAC, and he leads JRC's soil data and information system, supporting EU thematic strategy for soil protection and related policies. Until end of 2022, he manages JRC project portfolio for the 2021-27 Soil Health Work Program, including the EU Soil Observatory. So Luca, the floor is yours. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Eugenio. I hope that you can see my slides and that you can hear me. Good morning to everybody, and thanks for the invitation to briefly talk about soil desealing at the EU level. Keeping in mind, of course, that we as Commission have a rather limited competence on the issue of spatial planning and urban and infrastructural development. As you know, this is, according to the subsidiarity principle, strictly delegated to member states, and particularly then within member states, very often delegated at the local level. Nevertheless, we can talk about soil and soil desealing, particularly within the European Green Deal, that of course is our current framework in this Commission, with a package which I would call soft type of legislation or soft type of policy making, which is mostly advisory and providing guidelines and definitions. So let me first of all say a few words about soils, because this is my area of work, and making a clear distinction between what we call land and what we will call soil within, especially in the English language, because if you want to talk about soils, you need to go in the third dimension. So you need to go below the surface and study what is happening below ground. So the interaction between the functioning of this body, which is below ground, and the surface is at the core of our discussions and activities. So very briefly, if you dig a soil profile, which is what we usually call when we observe soil, so you need to go below ground and you will discover many things. I say this especially in this type of meetings where maybe not all of you have had the possibility to look below ground, because usually it's a discovery. It's a discovery that there is something which has a structure which is very different depending on where you are, and so it's very different properties according to the geographical distribution, and that is structured according to what we call horizons. So there is a process that is called pedogenesis that is making this very complex system what it is. And this is very important to understand, because making new soil requires hundreds of years, and that's why we consider this resource essentially as a non-renewable resource. The other big discovery when you go below ground is that you discover that this body is alive. There is a lot of life below ground. Actually, very often there's more life below ground than above ground, so more biodiversity below ground than above ground. We have tried since several years to document this and to raise awareness about this, also because our policy on soils is currently embedded within our European Green Deal, and particularly within our EU biodiversity strategy. So soil is alive, and this life in soil makes it an ecosystem which delivers ecosystem services. So the fact that soils deliver a number of ecosystem services makes this a body which needs to be maintained in a certain health condition. From that derives the emerging concept in the last years of soil health. A healthy soil is a soil that delivers a number of ecosystem services that are crucial to us, but not only to us, to the entire biosphere. So maintaining these ecosystem services is our goal with our current legislative effort. As you know, we presented a couple of years ago a strategy about how to achieve healthy soil all across Europe by 2050. But also we presented this year, and we are just discussing now in Council and in Parliament, a proposal for a soil monitoring resilience law, so a binding instrument, of which I will say a few words in relation to soil sealing and soil desealing. So let's go into the what we have been doing in the past about the issue of covering this functioning ecosystem with something which makes it less functional, which is covering it with an impervious surface, typically concrete, asphalt, or other type of materials, artificial materials, which of course change completely the functioning of this body and particularly change its hydrological cycle. More than 10 years ago, in 2012, actually, we released as European Commission guidelines for best practices to limit, mitigate, and compensate soil sealing. I really encourage you still to consult those guidelines, because even though they are more than 10 years old, I believe they're still valid. Even so, and we are actually working and already announced that we will release in the near future some updates to these guidelines. But in these guidelines, we have tried to document, first of all, the problem that if we have sealing, we have impediment to the functioning of soils, particularly to the functioning in the hydrological cycle, and the consequences of this malfunctioning in the hydrological cycle. So having much more surface runoff than water infiltration and in the soil body leads to a number of processes which are well known, often catastrophic. So the recent also flooding events, particularly in Italy, but also in other parts of Europe, have had quite some media coverage. Well, the soil sealing has an influence on this, because of course if water cannot infiltrate the soil, it will have to run off on the surface, and this creates a number of issues and problems if it's not properly managed. So these guidelines contain a number of advices from the Commission to member states and in general to stakeholders about what we can do in order to limit this problem. And particularly there is a list of permeable materials that can be used in alternative to unpermeable materials in order to favor the functioning of soil, if even though we are maybe in an urban or peri-urban or environment. And I encourage you again to go to those guidelines, because these are certainly still valid criteria. Now, more recently, as I said, in 2021, we have presented a new strategy on soils based on the vision that was put on the table within the European Green Deal. As you know, the current Commission, the von der Leyen Commission, has put as a central policy goal the achievement of several targets greening our environment in the European Union. The European Green Deal so contains also some visions concerning soils, and they have been outlined in a document that you can find online, which is the EU Soil Strategy for 2030, which outlines what we plan to do in order to achieve by 2050 that all soils in the European Union are in a healthy condition. And within that strategy, you will find also a quite extensive description of our vision concerning land take and soil sealing. So the consumption of fertile, particularly of the well-functioning soils by infrastructure, urbanization, and housing. And particularly you will find there what we have proposed as a land take hierarchy. So avoid as much as possible soil sealing, try to recycle already sealed areas and recover already sealed areas by the reuse concept, and particularly, of course, as we said, by the desealing vision. Minimize the impact on soil functions by using materials that can maybe be less impacting on the various functions, particularly on the hydrological function of soil, and compensate soil sealing with maybe desealing and more greening of other areas in the territory. So there are a number of recommendations to member states. Having targets at national level to reduce net land take by 2030, and particularly integrate the land take hierarchy into their own national plans. Now, this was, of course, our vision that we outlined in 2021. Now we are at the stage where we are proposing binding legislation. As you know, we proposed a directive to the European Parliament and to the Council. Actually, just today, there is a discussion in Council about this proposal by the Commission. There is no time, of course, here that I go through all the details of this legislative proposal, but I just want to mention 3 articles of the proposed legislation. First of all, the Article 3, where you will find binding definitions. I think having legally binding definitions of what we consider, for example, artificial land and what we consider land take is of crucial importance in order that we talk about the same thing when we talk of these type of issues across the European Union. The second article, which I would like to mention to you, is the Article 4, which outlines a vision that we have of establishing at EU level a number of soil districts. The soil districts emerge essentially from the vision that we need to combine local stakeholder action with scientific knowledge and with the local dimension of soil protection. Soils, as I said, are very different across the EU, so you cannot have a solution that fits the same way in all parts of the European Union. Soils are very different from air and water. That's why when you legislate about soils, you must take into account the enormous variability of soils across the European Union, while air and water are relatively homogeneous. So creating these soil districts is of crucial importance. Actually, precursors to these soil districts should be, or could be, the living labs that are essentially at the core of the soil mission that is the topic also of this project where we are discussing today. When you define then these soil districts at national level, we have provided in Article 4 some criteria. Of course, we would like to have soil districts that are not covering the entire countries, or possibly at an administrative level that should be at least NUTS 1, which is territorial units which are pretty broad still, but not covering the entire nation. We should take into account that this soil district should have a relatively homogeneous soil properties and soil types and climatic conditions and environmental conditions. And these soil districts, of course, should be the instrument to act then locally. And then I would like to mention Article 11, which is particularly addressing land take mitigation principles, where we ask member states to ensure that several principles are taken into account into future spatial planning, avoid and reduce as much as possible soil land take and soil sealing, reducing the areas affected, selecting areas where the loss of ecosystem services is less impacting on our overall soil health, and of course having in general attention to this problem, and on the other hand also compensate for already sealed or future sealed soils across the various districts, so that we can have a balance between land take and soil remediation or soil desealing in case it was covered by infrastructure. So this just in a nutshell, an overview of where we are. Of course, as I said, this is a proposal by the Commission. So right now there is a discussion going on in the Parliament and in the Council about this proposal. Probably what will come out of this discussion may be slightly or importantly different. There are several amendments being already proposed in Parliament and several proposals also from member states. So I encourage you to keep an eye on this development, which will certainly have an impact in the future managing of soils at national level, and particularly in the future land take and soil sealing issue at all levels. So thanks again for your attention, and I'm more than happy to reply to questions then later on when it is. Thank you. Hello?
Eugenio, we can't hear you. Okay.
Sorry. Thanks, Luca, for your presentation. It was very informative and great start for setting the framework of today's presentation and full of definitions and concepts that are very useful for our audience, like land take hierarchy, soil district, and this proposal for soil monitoring law. I have a question for you, because it seems like there is a very strong commitment at European level to deal with soil. And what is your opinion about more the trans-scalar commitment? What happens at national or local level in terms of commitment to preserve soil health?
Well, I'm dealing with these issues in more than 30 years, and I can tell you, compared to the beginnings 30 years ago, we made tremendous progress at all levels. We talk now about soils at all levels, also at national and local level, thanks to maybe also of our enormous effort in awareness raising that we've done over the last years. And the demonstration of this is actually your project and also the soil mission. If you imagine 30 years ago, dreaming of having soils being put in the same level as climate change research, cancer research, so the other missions that have been financed by the Commission, it's incredible that we have put soils at the same level as these very, very important societal priorities for research. So I think it's a huge success that we have had in raising awareness and putting soils central to our agendas. What is now the big question is how all this can be translated into action. And that's why the soil mission is so much putting the effort in the living labs and the lighthouses, because we need to translate scientific evidence and recognition of the issue into then action to have a change in the situation, a transformative change. And that's also what we would like to achieve by having better data through the soil monitoring directive that I just mentioned, so that we can also measure in a more accurate way if we are going into the right direction or in the wrong direction in our trajectories. But at the very end, as I said, soils are in the hands of local communities, because there is a very strong local dimension in soil protection, starting with the spatial planning and the urban planning and all the issues that are done at local level. So it's there where we must make an effort to sensibilize and to get stronger involvement. But I'm pretty positive in the sense there's been much more interest now than 30 years ago.
Okay, yes, thanks, Luca. I think also the mission has one of the objective 8 is about soil literacy and how to diffuse awareness and the importance of healthy soil to local communities and to the public in general. So I think that's really important that you mention also living labs and the role that this will have. So I think thank you for, if there are further questions, we have the second part also for discussion. Now I would like to share my screen back and introduce the second keynote speech by Federico Broggini, Federico Brogini is an architect, graduated at Accademia di Architettura di Mendrisio in Switzerland. Maybe you can start also sharing your screen. Since his early experiences, he focused on urban and landscape design, in particular dealing with soil and water management concerns. He is part of Latitude platform for urban design and research, and in 2022, he started a PhD in landscape architecture at Roma Tre University. The thesis explores the world of urban soils, in particular sealed soil by asphalt, investigating their history, values, and potentialities in landscape design practices. So different perspective now with some practice from Latitude platform. Federico, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Eugenio, and thank you, Luca, also for the very clear and interesting presentation. So, and thank you for the invitation. Today, I introduce to you Green with Grey. It is a project which focuses on water management of industrial platforms within the Flanders region. Green with Grey is part of the Ontarding program started in 2018 by the Flemish government. The program promotes the sealing over the region with a systemic approach, and it is organized in 45 living labs. In 45 living labs working through 3 types of process, the quick win, the coalition, and the strategic approach. And also, it intercepts 3 main topics, that is the sealing for more space for water, more qualitative school environments, and the sealing for more mobility with fewer roads. And Green with Grey is one of the strategic projects coordinated by Latitude Platform, indeed, together with KU Leuven and UC Leuven, 2 universities of Brussels. And it explores the possibilities for the sealing on industrial platform in order to give more space for water and improve the regional water cycle. Flanders is one of the best known productive area in Europe. There are more than 1,300 industrial platforms spread over the region, and they occupy almost 5% of the region, that is equal to a square of 25 kilometers by side. And they concentrate the majority of the Belgian industry and workforce, and the region features a continuous and a dense infrastructure throughout its landscape, as you can see in these images. And this landscape of industrial platform produces 200 million cubic meters of runoff water, more than 200 million. So Green with Grey looks at industrial platforms as thousands of water towers turned off. So they intercept a lot of water, but they have open taps. And starting with the regional strategic vision of 2018, Flanders launched a series of policies to support ecological transition in order to reduce recurrent floods and droughts that are happening very often last year. And these policies act only throughout buildings and environment permits, which means new development or renovation processes. And considering that the transformation rate in Flanders is very low, today is less than 1% per year, the question was how to deal with existing stock and how to accelerate the transformation. So Green with Grey takes this issue through a multi-scale approach. And the results are collected in 7 distinct booklets, compiled in a comprehensive publication. Each booklet is thought to address various scales and stakeholders, and also specific audiences from the more general public, as with introduction, to designers and to policymakers. So, starting with the diagnosis, Green with Grey examines industrial platform logics in both mainly spatial but also administrative dimensions. And territory of waters, the name of the diagnosis chapter, describes the entanglements between Flemish industrial platforms and their territory, illustrating the relationship with ecological, hydrogeological, and transportation structures across Flanders. So, employing a typological approach, we analyze industrial platforms at different scales, starting from subbasins of the main watershed of Flanders, and of which has been analyzed the infrastructure, the drainage, the permeability, the soil permeability, the ecological connectivity, and the topography. And then we continue with the scale of an industrial platform, where we describe the drainage system, the topography again, the sealed and unsealed surfaces, the parcels dimension, and the programs of the industrial platforms. And finally, at the scale of the industrial parcels, showing again the drainage, the microtopography, the typology of parcel hedges, the sealed and unsealed surface inside the parcels, and the productive open space programs, so the organization, spatial organization. And these maps show the hidden complexity of this productive landscape, while finding a coherent readability of that complexity. Dry and wet soil conditions, existing drainage system between combined separated sewer and open air ditch, and the private or public domain. So these are the recurrent features with which Green Grey provides 9 hypothetical stories of industrial platforms that detain, infiltrate, or reuse runoff water. In the third chapter, Actions for Water, we portray the actor coalitions as a key part of the redevelopment of the industrial platforms. So the actions for water are imagined based on the type of actors involved and the soil condition of the platform, that is wet or dry. So for instance, in the case, as I show here, the wet neighborhood, and that these stories involves mainly private actors. At least it starts with from the private actors, company owner in this case, or the wet district that hypothesizes a private-public collaboration where private and public actors are involved, or finally the wet park that involves mainly public actors. So the stories of change aims to inspire developers, policymakers, and designers to collectively initiate the required transformations. In the fourth chapter, The Corrosive of Water, the same 9 stories are investigating their possible spatial configurations. So these illustrations integrate devices as ditches, berges, ponds that detain, infiltrate, and reuse runoff water. Depending on the soil condition and public or private actors. So here, for example, again, the wet neighborhood foresees a spatial intervention on private parcels. Here you can see the existing situation and the design projects. But in the case, in the project, in this case of the wet district, the project addresses both private, but also the public space. And in the wet park, it addresses just the public space. So Green Grey design illustrations show how the change turns the platforms into real equipment to improve the water cycles. And in the towers of water, so Green Grey, we came up with 2 design projects to show the feasibility of turning on 1,000 water towers. And 2 industrial platforms, one dry, located in infiltration-prone soils, and the other that is wet, so set on retention-prone soils, fall within the watershed of the river Melbeck near Brussels. So here you see the wet platform called the Cargoville that we design, equipped with devices for water flow retention, detention and reuse. As you can see here, the water tower, the detention pond, a retention pond, and a system of ditches. And finally, the design speculation has been also coupled with coalition inspired by the actions for water, the previous third chapter, and policy instruments. And a very important part of the strategic project has been the on-field research, which is part of the testing ground booklet, the last booklet. At the very beginning of the project, we went on the field with the aim to test with our bodies what really means cutting asphalt and concrete slabs. So employing various tools for the sealing impermeable surfaces, we have also explored some initial design intuition. And finally, testing grounds helped us also to get in contact and understand the materiality and even the aesthetic value of the sealing matter. So to conclude, Green with Grey put in place a methodology that stresses the combination of working through actions on the field to acquire knowledge and to develop the strategic project, as we did in the summer school workshop. Once we develop the design strategies, we explore and discuss them with local actors and experts through online bilateral meetings. And later, we have also presented the configurations to regional agencies and managers of water system during roundtables, where the objective was indeed to let them negotiate on how to enable the transition. So finally, Green believes that through the combination of actions on site, bilateral meetings involving a broad and multiple public, is possible to turn on 1,300 water towers in Flanders. And thank you. I end the presentation.
Thank you so much, Federico. I'm really happy to also host this presentation of the project Green with Grey, and because you touched on materiality and what it means also to break the soil beside the great complexity in addressing what it means to demolish and to recover soil. So I think it's a really good example of the challenges that we have to deal with when it comes to soil desealing. So what do you think are the main challenges that you faced in this very large confrontation also with different stakeholders?
Thank you, Genio. No, I think that's what you mentioned before. First, is very important. Indeed, I think that sometimes when we speak about the sealing, we think as a very technical action. And it is very important to get in contact with the material, as you said, because I think, we discovered that asphalt is very easy to unseal because it's because of the bituminous component is much more easier than the concrete, and a lot of that is was sort of problem because it's a lot of industrial platforms in Flanders are made of concrete slabs. So but as also Luca said at the beginning, it was very interesting to get in contact with the sealing action with the soil, because it was a way to discovery and to discover what is under, and I think it is a very important part. Concerning the second, I think that's a very important part was to get in contact with all the stakeholders and to make them communicate, because I think today a part that is missing, that is that communication between different stakeholders, like private, public, but also in within the public sectors are not that evident. And one thing that I also think is very important, and I mean, like with Latitude platform, we used to always we try to have a multi-scalar approach and to address at first the territorial scale. And in sealing and in the sealing actions, I think this is very important, as we show in terms of vectors, indeed, but also in terms of soil condition, and to understand also that sometimes the sealing is not the best practice if, for example, we want to seal on wet soils, like the bottom of the valleys. But sometimes we have to use other strategies. So it's not that it's not. I think that it's important to address the sealing not as to say that to the seal everywhere, but we have to really consider the condition of every case. And yes, so I had.
No, thanks, Federico. I think your project shows the multiple stakeholder contributions, the importance that you bring the urban design and architectural design perspective. Then in the second part also we will have other insights. So you are showing the materiality of the soil, of the first layer of the soil with impervious soil, and then we ask ourselves, so but what's it's beneath? So in the second part we will explore also these issues with other expertise. So thanks a lot for the very rich experience that you showed us. And now I think it's time for a break. If there are no other questions from the audience, or you can think about future comments, questions, you can write them in the chat, or you can also use our Miro board. So I invite you again to explore this digital board that we prepare with the contacts of our guests. Anita?
Yes, in fact, like I'm again posting the links to our Miro board that is meant again to map the participants who are here and also to start and engage some networking. So thank you very much to our keynote speakers, which we still invite to remain for the second part, which in which we will debate also in some other aspects that we could not address in the first part, but we will continue our discussion. So thank you again. We will resume at 11. So perfect time for a coffee break, and see you in a bit. Please stay connected to do not lose your seat, okay? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See you in 10 minutes.
Okay, see you later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, here we are back. So welcome back. Hope you had a good coffee. And now we're ready to start with our second part, collaborative discussion. In the meantime, we hope you had a chance to explore our digital board on Miro and get to know who else is attending this event. Of course, if we see some interesting ongoing activity, we can report about it. And now, to delve more into this second part, we invite you to participate in some quizzes that we're trying to do with the audience, so in order to understand who is here and doing what. So the first question is, do you have any experience on soil desealing? We invite you to answer to these questions. We give a few minutes to do so. So of course, some of you, I guess, are already experienced in terms of desealing plans, so mainly as policymakers or planners or part of the planning sector. Some others in terms of tangible actions. So for instance, as we've seen in the second presentation, in terms of deconstruction, but also urban regeneration or more other types of activities related to the building sector. And of course, no. So we are also here to learn, and it's totally fine if we don't have any experience yet on desealing. Maybe after this event, we will be great expert and more feel more confident that we can do this together in the spirit of the event.
Please feel free also to share if you have experience, the experience on the chat or also on the Miro board. There is a space for collecting also experiences on soil desealing in the practice, which is something very rare, actually. Okay, I think 100% of respondents replied. So of course, majority says no experience, 64%. But we have also 5 people that have experience with desealing plans and 7 people with tangible action. So which is good. It would be very interesting to connect and know more about these experiences. So feel free also to digitally interact with us.
Yes, and I guess we can also make another question. So, what is, in your opinion, the most challenging aspect of soil desealing? So, as we have also mentioned in our presentation, there are very different problems collecting and reinforcing each other sometimes. So we have for sure a problem of public awareness, that is the challenge to get public support and competing demands for land uses. And also stakeholders engagement, that is to involve multiple stakeholders in the process, lack of technical expertise in recovering desealed soils, which requires also a multidisciplinary knowledge, as we have seen, financial constraints related to the cost of desealing and reclamation from pollution, and the policy and regulatory barriers, for instance, lack of incentives, lack of integration with urban planning strategies and tools. Of course, and always reply based on your experience, your impression, and if you have encountered these challenges, report them in the chat so that they can be shared also with the audience and also with the discussants that are here with us for this second part. And yes, you can take the occasion to also pose direct questions to them or also to the previous keynote speakers.
In the meantime, I see that already more than 35 people responded, and actually it's a race, and the results are quite competing with each other. So there is no a majority or an imbalance for one answer. But of course, financial constraints seems to be very relevant, but also the others are competing. So maybe we can now show the results with you. And yeah, you see that public awareness, stakeholder engagement, and policy and regulatory barriers compete with financial constraints as well. So there is a quite, let's say, evident picture that the issues and the challenges are complex, and they are all relevant for the soil mission. Thanks for your contribution. So then this just ice-breaking exercise with the quiz was a bit to sense the temperature in the room and understand also more about you and the audience that is involved in this thematic event. So it's time to move to our second part with the collaborative discussion with our guests. We have Chiara Ferré and Dolinda Cavallo. I will introduce them now. In dialogue with, we invite back our keynote speakers, Luca Montanarella, Federico Broggini, and also our colleagues, Andrea Arcidiacono and Silvia Ronchi. Again, feel free to join the discussion, also writing in the chat, but also if you want to say something, please, you are also invited to speak. So our first guest for the second part as discussant is Dr. Chiara Ferré. So I invite you to share your slides while I introduce you. She obtained her PhD in environmental sciences at the Department of Environmental and Earth Sciences of the University of Milan Bicocca, where she continued her research as a postdoctoral fellow, and since 2021, she's a researcher in pedology, expert in environmental functions of soils with focus on carbon storage, spatial variability, soil-plant relationships, and degradation processes. She's currently involved in the National Biodiversity Future Center project financed by the National Recovery and Resilience Plan in Italy as a referent of the task biodiversity of urban soils and water cycle. I see that the slides are ready, so the floor is yours. Thanks, Chiara, for being with us.
Thank you for the introduction and thank you for the invitation. Do you see my slide okay?
Yes, perfectly. Yes, we see.
Okay. So, yes, I'm a soil scientist, and so I'll speak in this discussion about pedological point of view of sealing and desealing, of course. Yes, something has been said before about ecosystem services provided by soil, and so I say something again brief. And yes, you all know you all know that soil provide human beings with ecosystem services, and yes, this is true for natural soil, and this is true also for urban soil. Often, urban soil is considered as a platform and also as a waste to be disposed of once removed by its location. But it also provides a lot of important ecosystem services. And yes, the soil sealing results in the loss of all these ecosystem services. And in particular, among all the ecosystem services before, Montanarella spoke about the water regulation services. And yes, the sealing limit the exchange between a soil and some other environmental compartment, and resulting in the loss of ecosystem services, in this case resulting in the loss of urban drainage capacity. And yes, we know the urban flooding that has become an important issue and stressing the urban drainage. And so it's important for our city to have a green area where water may infiltrate. And yes, there are a lot of other ecosystem services, and the sealing, with the sealing we lose these ecosystem services. And before speaking about organic carbon, yes, the seeding of the soil loses the capacity, the productive capacity. So the seeding soil doesn't host any vegetation, and the water content, the oxygen is low, and so this means low activity, microbial and biological activity. And yes, I'm showing you this slide because we know that soil stores organic carbon content, so it's another important ecosystem services. And what about organic carbon content in soil? Yes, of course, when we think about urban soil, we think about a low organic carbon content. And we carried out a study in Milan, and you can see here some results. And yes, soil of an urban non-park store low organic carbon content, but urban park, I can show you this part, contain very high content of organic carbon, and also comparable to cropland and grassland of the area around Milan. So urban soil can be also fertile, so and rich in organic carbon. But I have a question for you. And what happened when with the seeding of soil? And yes, the answer is the organic carbon is preserved. Why? Because we are in an absence of losses, so we don't lose organic carbon with mineralization, and but we have not also the input of organic matter. But there is a but. Usually, before seeding a soil, the topsoil is removed, and sometimes, and also often, a layer with a low organic carbon content is added. So usually, the soil under the seeding is characterized by a low organic carbon content. And yes, of course, the seeding of the soil may recover this organic carbon, and so recover the ecosystem services, and so the capacity of the soil to store organic carbon. And this is the main effect of seeding the soil. And yes, I'd like to show you also some other properties of urban soil. Why? Because a possible question is what soil we find under the seeding. And to answer, it's important to know something about urban soil. And yes, the urban soil are the results of a transformation. So this is an example. We have a transformation of a natural soil to urban soil under disturbance. A disturbance that increase going toward the urban center. And yes, in our cities, we can find a lot of soil types, and the first two they are urban soil, and they show semi-natural characteristics. They are soil of parks, Parco Nord and Bosco in Città in Milan. And yes, they are natural characteristic. This is rich in organic carbon, and they semi-natural because they were, of course, agricultural land, and they are modified. But we can find also very highly modified soil, like this, or in this case, rich in artifacts. So technosoil are rich in technic materials or sealed. And yes, urban soil may be contaminated, usually by metals, and mainly of anthropogenic origin, can be compacted, as you can see in this slide, and they can show an oxid condition. This is a soil that is was desealed by our colleagues of Florence, and this color, this grayish and bluish color, is the result of absence of oxygen due to the sealing. And yes, this is only to show you that the soil under the urban soil, and so the soil under the sealing, can be very, very variable. So the spatial variability is very, very high, and is random. For example, in a natural environment, it's possible to understand something about soil without digging. So looking at the landscape, because there is a relationship between soil and landscape. But in urban area, it is impossible. It's a surprise. Soil, we have to remove the sealing, and we have to observe the soil, because the uncertainty is very, very high. And yes, this is to introduce this part. The variability of soil, of urban soil, of soil under sealing, is very high, and so the practices that can be taken to recover soil depends on soil characteristics. So there is a wide range of possibility. Once we remove the sealing, we can see and decide what to do. We can find a soil that is compacted, and so we should decompact it. And the first aim, not the only aim of the sealing, is to recover the soil and all its function. And first of all, promoting the establishment of the vegetation. And yes, if the soil is poor in organic carbon, we can add organic matter, with, for example, adding compost. And as I said before, before the sealing, the topsoil is removed. So the soil is decapitated. And in this case, we can add exogenous soil. But yes, it doesn't make sense use a new soil from another location and put it in to recover a desealed soil, an unsealed soil. Yes, this makes sense if we are in a circular economy. Of course, I'm removing soil for buildings and can use to recover an unsealed soil. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. And another possibility is to reconstruct the soil using on-site material. So construction and demolition waste, for example. And yes, there isn't only unique solution. We have to decide according to the soil characteristics, and not only the top soil characteristics, because of course we have to favor to promote the establishment of vegetation. So it's important to know the characteristics of the topsoils, organic carbon, pH, and so on, but also what we found in the deep part. And this is for to show you some image to better understand. The first one, yes, this is an agricultural soil, but this situation can be found also in an urban area. It's a layer that is grayish and bluish, similar to that I showed you before. But in this case, this color is again due to an oxidized condition, but due to a shallow water table. And so it means the absence of oxygen, and this is important for plants. And so we have to know that there is a situation like this because we can adapt our practices and our practices to recover the soil. And this second, it is a good soil. In surface we have a high organic carbon content because it is dark. But what happened in this layer? Yes, it's lighter, and so it means that it has less organic carbon, but this is not the problem. This layer is very, very hard. It's a compacted layer. And so this is a limitation for root penetration. And so it's a limit, it's a problem. It's a problem that it's important to know. And it's possible by looking and by knowing the soil. And the last, this is a soil with a very high organic rock fragment content, and also this affect the vegetation growth because it affects the water content and the infiltration. In this case, the infiltration is very, very fast. Yes, it's all I wanted to show you that the variability in the urban area is very, very high, and the only possibility to decide how to act is to know soil and to study soil. If there are questions, I'm available.
Eugenio, we can't hear you.
Okay. Thanks, Chiara, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Urban soils are surprised, you said, so that this is a key message, that there is a high variability and an uncertainty about the quality of soil. And this means also that it creates contingencies and financial issues when de-sealing soils. This is a big challenge. I open the floor if there are any questions or comments to what we heard from Chiara, because she opened a lot of interesting questions to us. If there are no questions, then I have a question about, like, how do you think that our let's say when we do interventions in cities about soil de-sealing, how to manage these uncertainties that you presented? Because you said we can de-seal the soil and then we have these surprises. So how to really let's say make sure that also public administrations, public authorities want to support soil de-sealing if they don't know, but what contingencies might reveal.
Okay, but yes, the variability is high, of course, but I think it is possible to address them. Sometimes the situation is not so critical. Of course, if the soil is compacted, okay, we decompact it. It's not a problem. It's the organic carbon content is low. We can add, of course. There are situations in which we have a contamination, yes, of course, but in this case, it's necessary, of course, to reclaim soil. But some situations are known, so there are areas in urban area, there are sites in urban area that are contaminated. But yes, this is another situation, and in this case, before there is a reclamation, and then we can reconstruct soil. It's another.
Exactly. Yes, thank you, Chiara. You really entered so much in detail. There is a question also from Silvia and also from Federico. Silvia Ronchi asked, in your experience, what types of analysis should be done before a desealing operation? So before starting.
Yes, usually it's recommended to do some corings before desealing the soil. And yes, the analyses are the common analysis about the soil, and according to yes the final destination. So if we want to establishment vegetation, we can do some basic analysis, organic carbon, pH, and so on. We have recently started a study of functional recovering of soil by desealing technique, and we carried out routine analysis and also methods analysis, for example, and we found some methods, but of course under and below the legal limits. Okay.
Thank you, Chiara. And Federico, you also have a question.
No, yes. Thank you, Chiara. It was very interesting presentation. I have a few questions, but then maybe you can discuss it later. But one mainly is about the fact that I mean, you make a distinction, and this is I took from my point of view, that is one of the urban architect urbanist, and I think what do you think is a urban soil or a natural soil? I mean, like in the slide 6, you show naturality versus disturbance versus and I mean, like, can we consider even agriculture a disturbance from, or a change of, I mean, an artificial soil? And in the sense that I think that sometimes we used to have a moral judge on what is artificial, what is natural. Artificial is bad, natural is good, and as you show, for instance, in your in the Chiaravalle core, in the Chiaravalle pits that you show, there is I mean, this soil, I would say that we normally, if we use like these categories, natural, artificial, can be considered a natural soil. But you show that there is under it, there is a hard compacted horizon. So should we consider this a soil that has to be desealed in a way, even if there is organic matter above or not. So I think, but because it was very, I think it is a very interesting question, and I think we have to ask ourselves sometimes how we judge degraded or healthy soils. I mean, it depends to who address healthy soil or degraded soil. I don't know if it was clear, but
yes, I can say a few words, but yes, I spoke about semi-natural and I show you agricultural soil. Yes, agricultural soil are modified, but yes, the level is it's different between the agriculture and of course the techno soil. And yes, of course, also agricultural soil are modified. It's true. The level is different, of course. The agricultural soil is modified because, for example, they show lower organic carbon content from natural soil because we have the plowing and so mineralization, or also as the results of a movement of a soil. So to level the field, we can move, and so we can decapitate the soil, and so there are some modification, but yes, it's true.
Yes. Okay. Thanks. I think we this is this last question. It's the perfect example for a multidisciplinary discussion around healthy soils and different also land use styles, which is a big question also we have in nations. How to work in a multiple land use styles perspective, let's say. It's not very easy because we have different expertise, different focuses. So this is, I think, the perfect way to introduce the last guest, Dolinda Cavallo from Enol. So while I introduce you, I invite you to share the slides. Dolinda Cavallo is a project manager at the European Network of Living Labs. Enol is also, of course, one of the crucial partners of Nations Project. She holds a master's degree in international relations from the University of Bologna Forlì campus, along with bachelor's degree in foreign languages and cultures from the University of Pavia. And her career spans various European countries, where she contributed to non-profit organizations as both project manager and coordinator of EU-funded projects, covering diverse areas such as digitization, environment, migration, and social inclusion. And currently, she's actively engaged in Enol's portfolio of agri and soil-related projects and co-chairs of the working group on agriculture, agri-food, and rural issues. Thanks, Dolinda. The floor is yours. We can see you and see the slides and hopefully hear you.
Yeah, can you hear me well? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for inviting me. So after the, let's say, the more technical part about soil distilling, that was very insightful. We thought that was a good moment to go more in details on the Living Lab approach, that are the core of the Living Lab topics of the soil mission. So why I'm here? Because I'm part of, can you see? Yes, of Enol. Enol is the international non-profit organization of certified living labs. So Enol has been founded in 2006 under the Finnish European presidency. So our goal is to promote the living lab concept, influence policies, enhance living labs, and enable their implementation at global level. So we facilitate knowledge exchange and joint action and project partnership among our members. So despite, let's say, the name of European Network, we actually from the European level, we have grown a lot to an international community, because we gather more than 160 active members across 5 continents, and we have historically certified more than 600 living labs. Besides our work, the work that we do with and for our members, we are involved in several projects, in more than 20 European projects, and always to support the creation and the strengthening of the living labs. Among these, I think it's worth to mention the Prep Soil project, the Soil project, and also, of course, Nations, because we are part of Nations as well. So with the vision of being, let's say, the leading organization of that should empower the global development of the living labs, we offer a concrete path to help living lab to grow, and we offer different services. Among these services, we offer a certification and labeling process that help living labs to be qualified as and to receive a certification of living lab. Capacity building. We offer a program that can be tailored to the different needs of the interested parties, and this can be entities who are willing to set up a living labs, but also any organization or a professional who wants to gain more expertise in the living lab methodologies and approach. And then we also co-lead and help our members to gather in working groups to support exchange and collaboration. So as the first question for you, we would like to ask you if you have ever been involved in living labs, if you're currently involved in living labs, and so you can answer yes, no, maybe you're not sure that you are involved in living labs, so this is also an option. So I invite you to answer to the quiz that you should see in the on the screen. Let's just wait a few minutes. So the idea here is to understand who is the part of who is taking part of this event, to understand if you have already a very extensive knowledge of living labs, or maybe this is a completely new topic for you.
It's interesting that for now, 4 people said they attended living labs, and 4 people said not sure it was a living lab. So I think this is also one challenge that we are facing in Nations, to support applicants in understanding what it officially, let's say, a living lab is or might be. So being part of participatory processes and or co-creation processes might be within living labs or not, depends how we define living labs. So I think Linda's contribution might help a lot in this.
Yes, it's always it is very common, not very, let's say, sometimes it's common to see that some people don't really know if they what's the organization they're in, it is involved in living labs or not. So it's yeah, I agree, it's interesting. So from the answers we see that so most of you are not involved, at least currently, in living labs. And we have
also confirms that a lot of experts in soil issues and challenges are not familiar with living lab concept.
Yes, yes. So let's say the 75% is not, and then 13% says yes, and 13% is not sure. So if anybody wants to share their experiences, you can feel free to reserve your spot, and you can open the microphone and then share your experience as well.
Also, maybe if you are not ready, maybe at the end of Dorinda's presentation, report your experience via chat or using the microphone.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Okay, so then I move on to the next slide. Yeah. we
Yes.
can maybe have some time at the end of the presentation to interact as well. So let's say relating to this quite big number of people who is not involved in living labs. What are living labs? So there are several definitions, and the way NOL defines living lab is real life test and experimentation environment that foster co-creation and open innovation among the main actors of the quadruple helix. So it's important to understand that citizens are at the center of innovation. So Living Lab operates as intermediaries among citizens, research organizations, companies, government. And so the idea of Living Labs is to support and foster co-creation and to scale up innovation and businesses. For this reason, the quadruple helix model is at the center of is at the core of the Living Labs. And the quadruple helix model has been defined by Karayanis in 2009 as an extension of the typical public-private partnership, and it involves representatives from all members of the society. So we have the academia, so it can be, for example, universities, research centers, institute of research, and then public sector. So it could be government and regional agencies, and as well as policymakers. And then industry could be different type of businesses. And then the fourth actor that is very important in the quadruple helix is the citizens. So the civil society that could include end users, consumers, and associations. So these together, these different stakeholders form part of what we call the public-private people partnership, and it ensures a real co-creation and impact. So let's imagine a urban living lab. Let's think who should be part of the living lab. Do you think this is a complete living lab? I believe we already missed we missed some of the stakeholders that have been explained before. We should consider the public administration, the urban planners, infrastructure, technology, academics, researchers, businesses, so different type of commerce, and then real estate professional, citizens, of course. This is at the core. So this is just an example. Of course, the living labs should be adapted to the context and the aim of the living labs, but this is an idea on how different stakeholders should collaborate, and you should always think about the quadruple helix to make sure that the living lab approach is applied. And to continue and say this discussion, if you are part of a living lab, if you're willing to set up a living labs, what kind of stakeholder would you represent in the quadruple helix? The academia, the government, the citizens, or the industry? You can answer to with the quiz. Let's see who is taking care of the being part of this event, to see if you have an idea on who would you represent in the living lab.
Yes, I think that's for sure. Being involved in myself in academia, and the role that academia plays also in this cross-country relationships is very important. So we expect that most of people participating to thematic events, which are specific on cutting-edge topics, might also originate from academia, so that academia can, let's say, create this networking easier. Of course, government as well.
Yeah, it's true. And we will see it later, but it is important then to see how the different stakeholders exchange and are able to connect with the others stakeholders. So as you said, you were you already anticipated. So most of you are actually part of the academia, and we have a good average of participation from citizens and then governments, and we have a very low participation from the industry sectors, at least in this event. Okay, good to, it's interesting to see. And then moving on to why living labs are important and why we should apply the living lab approach. So I will not go into the details of this apply, but the idea is that the living labs can really offer real life environments for co-creating solutions. And so they involve different stakeholders across the quadruple helix, and this allows a faster innovation cycle because the living labs can then meet the needs of the final users, the risk, innovation, and driving also a societal impact. So that's why the living labs are a very innovative and useful approach to address these kind of challenges. And within an all, regardless of the field of work, we identify 6 common elements of all living labs. The first one is co-creation. So living labs should assure a bottom-up approach with the that allows the collaboration among all the stakeholders. Real-life settings, innovation processes should happen in real-life environments. Multi-method approach. So living labs is problem-driven, and so the approach used should be the approach should depend on the users, but also on the outcomes of the activity that you are willing to implement, the expected outcomes. Orchestration. So the living labs should be able to connect all the different stakeholders and assure that the collaboration is smooth and is it is able to create a good partnership among all the stakeholders. And multi-stakeholders participation. So as I said before, all the stakeholders that represent the quadruple helix model should be included, should be represented in the living lab. And active user involvement. This is very important for a living lab to make sure that all the stakeholders actively participate and that above all feedbacks are gathered. So in order to improve the activities and the impact of the living labs, it is important to gather and to take in consideration the feedbacks from all the stakeholders of the quadruple helix. And so these are, let's say, the essential building blocks that a living lab should assure while setting up the living lab. So what do you, which of these living labs essential block do you think it is most difficult to apply? Above all, in the context of the urban industrial soil. Co-creation, real-life settings, multi-method approach, orchestration, multi-stakeholders participation, and active user involvement. Let's see, what do you think? It's the most difficult block, let's say, to apply when maybe that you have experience already, or do you think it is difficult to apply in your context? Is it easy to co-create with the stakeholders you deal with? It is difficult to apply the activities of the living labs in the real life settings. So let's see what you think, and above all, would be nice to hear from you. Why do you think it is difficult in your experience? You can also choose more than one options. Let's see what you think. I think would be interested then to hear your ideas. Okay, so we have the answers. So according to your answers, let's say the most difficult feature that you believe it's difficult to apply is the multi-stakeholder participation. And then the active user involvement comes second. And then we have at the same level the co-creation and real-life setting, and then the multi-method approach and the orchestration. So you think the most orchestration is the easiest feature to occur in the living lab. If anybody would like to share anything about why you think it is difficult, it would be nice to hear from you, right?
I think I agree with these outcomes, in the sense that still the big barrier is to engage stakeholders, to make them participate, to have them on board, and have their support. Then co-creation, real life setting is more a responsibility of the facilitator and orchestration, of course. Of the expertise in facilitating the process, but first of all, we need commitment from multi-stakeholders.
Yeah, I mean, I agree as well, and I think the thing is, from my experience, they're all related. So it's not, let's say, different blocks. So if you assure an effective orchestration of the activities and the connection among the different stakeholders, you are also able to assure an active user involvement. So there, and also as well, in my experience, also hearing from the feedbacks of our members, in order to assure all these blocks, in order to assure that citizens and end users participate in the activities and give feedback, in order to assure that all the stakeholders wants to collaborate and wants to participate in the co-creation methodology. It is very important to assure trust. Trust is the key word that we have learned from the living labs who are part of our network. Because if you are able to build trust among all the stakeholders, then it's much easier, let's say, to assure the participation of the living labs stakeholders, and to be sure that they want to continue the engagement. I think it is an interesting feedback to share.
Yeah, I believe also that trust can be built also by showing good experiences, and we're hoping to do so also in this event. I know that also you have some cases to show.
So
yes.
So like I will show the living labs.
Yes.
Yes. So yeah, to conclude my presentation, then I will stop talking. So we thought it would be nice to share some of the living labs who are part of our network, so that are related to the urban and industrial context. And so with the Krakow Technology Park is a very complete one-stop shop for business operating in the country, and their portfolio is involves initiatives that included green projects. Then we have the Torino City Lab, is an initiative that aims at creating more accessible conditions for companies interested in respond to concrete needs of the territory, public administration, and citizens. And then we have Save Our Soil for Life, that is a demonstration project that aims to contribute to the implementation at municipal scale of European guidelines on soil protection and urban regeneration. And with this, I conclude my presentation. But yeah, I remain at your disposal for any question or comments or experience that you would like to share.
Thanks,
Thank you
Dolinda,
so
very
much.
much. It was, again, very interesting and informative what you presented. I think we are reaching conclusions of this event. I try to wrap up the main outcomes, but then if there are other comments, happy to have a last round of discussion. Since we have still a few minutes. So first of all, we discovered that urban industrial soils are a surprise. And of course, it confirms that dealing with soil is a complex challenge. We also saw that practical experience and tangible results for soil distilling are still few and often confined to small areas and like tentative pilot projects. And also a number of requirements. So implementing soil distilling measures requires the collaborations of multiple stakeholders and multidisciplinary expertise that we also had a demonstration today with our guests. And the Living Lab model offers this opportunity or support in the sense to engage multiple stakeholders with different expertise, but also the issue of engaging citizens, as we saw from the quiz, or the wider public is an issue. Also, stakeholders, policymakers, and especially landowners, I would say, it's important and it's a challenge. So we all need to recognize the value of freed soil somehow, and yeah, and then also working on distilling means that we always need advanced technical knowledge in implementing methods for sustainable interventions and monitoring that are also capable of restoring the health of this distilled soil. So it's not enough to distill soil, but then we have also to work on recovering the quality of soil. So that's a message for all, especially for public authorities. Are there any other comments before we move to wrap up and conclusion of this event? Questions for our guests or in the chat?
Well, personally, I was quite surprised to see that orchestration is perceived as not so challenging. That is a good news because, of course, being also the Living Lab is multi-stakeholders. And so I think that, of course, there is always a problem of getting so many minds and expertises together. But I think that by revolving around a very clear message of soil health, and especially in urban and post-industrial areas, I think that it drives already the participants to be willing to interact and, as also Dolinda said, trust each other. Of course, it is a challenge that we hope that we are contributing to. But yeah, I was quite surprised. Sometimes I have the feeling that the orchestration is quite difficult, but maybe this is inspiration to pursue in this.
Yes, I agree with your comment as well. Yeah, I think it depends a lot by the different contexts as well. Maybe, you know, in some contexts, it's just easier to interact and to make sure that everybody is, you know, participating and connected with the other. In others, it's more difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. Still, the problem of engaging or making the users active, it's something that is a good reminder. Also, because I guess that the challenge of Living Labs is really to twist the situation from passive to active. So it's also a matter of giving the strength to the people to believe that they can change. something in their context. I think Federico has something to say.
Yes. I think I also agree with your comments, and I think also, I mean, like what we need is sort of cultural shift. Also, I think this is very important, and indeed, like as you said, the engagement of citizens in this action is very important. I would also like make a point. Maybe I think that I mean I'm not a policymaker, but with Green Gray, and also with the PhD, I'm trying to understand like the context of the policy, and I think what is missing now is like the non-land take speaks a lot about avoiding like future interventions. It's very focused on limiting future interventions. What is missing a bit, I think, is to work on the existing. And when we speak about the ceiling, is to work with the existing and to take seriously in consideration what is there. And I think it is not stressed as it should be if we speak about the ceiling. And I was very struck by the fact that financial constraints was one of the main points, because from my side, from like I still, I mean, I repeat myself, but I speak as an architect, landscape architect, and I have in mind a lot of projects of the ceiling that doesn't require actually a lot of financial constraint, financial costs, because they reuse what is there. And again, the existing condition is very important. Like reuse asphalt, the concrete to make new soils that for sure are not fertile for agriculture, but I mean, in urban environment, we don't just speak about fertility in these terms. It's a fertility in terms of also of social issues and other than human bodies that can be are part for sure of our of the environment we live. So I think that financial constraints can be a issue, but not always. For sure, if we speak about imagining like urban redevelopment, urban regeneration projects, and okay, yeah, stop.
Also, the comments of Federico connect also to what Denise was asking or suggesting and reflection in chat. Like there is a very important need to understand where to intervene in urban areas and what is interesting to do in terms of desealing. So again, linking to what Federico was saying, a great importance is on what to do with the existing facilities, with existing elements, and how to convert them at the best. Good to know that the financial constraints can also be not the main concern. This is very good to know, and yeah, again, another thing to reflect on. Thank you so much.
Yes,
I can just sorry, maybe I can put in the chat some examples of these.
The audience would appreciate a lot.
And I think that Denise, I just read now the comment, but I think this is very important. What you said, it's like to understand where, in what urban areas, and in this scale, the multi-scalar approach is very important, I think. But I will put the link. Thank you.
Thank you, Federico. Yes. So yeah, we are slightly over the time, but still we can take some minutes to tell you about some other elements that are framing our event here. So we kindly invite you to subscribe to the transnational matchmaking platform to continue the networking and matchmaking. So it would be a good occasion for you to stay in contact with the ones who share your same thoughts and also can complement your thoughts. Always directed to support the EU mission on soil deal for Europe. And we invite you to subscribe there, and also to keep an eye on the next events that will run in the next months. So here I can see the palimpsest of the following events. The next one will be on the 11th of January on innovative women improving food and health and soil health, and all the rest, as you can see in the calendar. So another aspect is that your feedback is appreciated for the evaluation of these and future events. So save the dates for the next appointments. You can register to the matchmaking platform at the link that I've just sent. And for more information, please visit our website. Eugenio, you want to add something?
Thanks, Anita. I just want to thank everyone, our guests, for joining us and making this event very fruitful in terms of content and also conversation. And beside the feedback survey, we will also share the contacts of our participants that gave the consent to share their information about their expertise and what they are looking for. So the same information that you see on the Miro board will also be sent to you later. And so thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, also to all of our guests and our participants. Thanks for being here, really. It was very interesting discussion, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
Yeah, see you soon.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.